Alright, we're live. So let's just make sure I've got the link to this and that people can find the stream. So I'll just get Twitter open. Hello. Share it. And then grab the same link. Go to Discord. Now streaming. Code again. Now streaming some NativeScript Core code. Clean up again. Come along and chat if you'd like. Okay. Hopefully that does the trick. Okay, so focus for today. Not really sure yet. We've got, as you can see in my version control GUI, we've got quite a few gesture and observers related branches open on PR at the moment. And I can keep opening branch after branch after branch, sort of optimistically assuming that they're going to get merged and there's not going to need too many changes on each of them. But it does get tiring branching off branches and rebasing, and it does slow you down. And so I might just try to work in an independent area. So we'll go back to main branch and make a branch, but for just now, I'm not quite sure what I want to work on. There is the option of working on bindable. It's something that has a lot of sort of any types, for example, which makes it very hard to follow the code. And there's all sorts of stuff going on here. At the same time, it requires a lot of mental burden to figure out this stuff, and so it's a bit intimidating to work on bindable live on stream, because I'll mostly be going, I wonder what this is, silently. So another thing we could do is incrementally introduce strict mode to the TypeScript config. Now the way to incrementally adopt strict mode would be, and I've not actually put this to test, introduce TS configs around the repo, just sectioning off subtrees of the repo, and just extending the original TS config and setting strict as true. And then that's easy enough that I could pretty much zombie my way through without having to think too hard. So that's quite attractive for a stream, something to do on stream. And then the other thing, alternatively, there's just loads of things catching my eye. Like, you could express that a bit more efficiently. And binding context in the first place takes truthy or falsy args. So I think maybe the way to go about it is we have a quick look at bindable, see if there's any easy wins here. And then if it starts to look very intimidating, we can consider taking on something less scary. What is bindable? Bindable is, I'm not totally sure, but it's involved in event handling. It's the concept that in NativeScript you can have two-way bindings, just like Angular. And to achieve that, the event handling system listens for changes in properties and then emits a property change event as a result. And then so that I think is most of what there is to do with bindable. That's where it gets its bindings name. But there's also the other thing that when you call a callback, you call it with this context, and that probably plays into it as well. So for lack of anything better to do, I think maybe start a branch on bindable. So clean up bindable and just for now cruise on it, see if we learn anything. See if there's anything we'd like to improve upon. So go full screen. Okay. Start off with some Earl Grey. Just check on other channels. So far, nothing. Bring that into focus. Close up system settings. I'm just going to get this. So I don't actually need the simulator right now. Let's close all my passwords and mail. Terminal I don't need. Calendar don't need. Music, who knows? I might listen later. Okie dokie. Weak event listeners. I've not really thought too much about strong and weak event listeners yet. It's actually not come up when I've been cleaning up Bindable. So just getting myself familiar with Bindable, I can see this use external renderer is relevant to the fact that NativeScript supports creating a user interfaces using a variety of different web renderers. You can use React, you can use Angular, Vue, all sorts, and some of them don't need certain features, and I think it's generally the kind of XML flavor, which we call vanilla, that needs extra features. This is quite intimidating. Not familiar with much any of this. I've not noticed dollars before when I'm moving around the code base, so lots and lots of new stuff in front of me. So that already is a bit weird. You're trying to get a parent view and it's not typed as a view, it's typed as any. That feels wrong. And of course the codebase is not in strict mode, so you're always doing extra undefined checks, which means there's a lot of scope for people to run into issues if they're not very omniscient about what to look out for. So I'm pretty confident there will be things that have been overlooked. And this also object, it probably doesn't mean object. This code base has been around since the early days of TypeScript, like TypeScript, I assume TypeScript 1 or earlier. And so some things weren't totally understood, and object is definitely a wrong thing to be looking for there. There's usually linter rules that say don't bother playing with object at all. Okay, well I've scrolled from top to bottom here, and nothing's jumping out at me as a easy win. I can definitely see unclean things, but this is a little intimidating for live coding. Okay, is there anywhere else we can... Oh, that's interesting. That's something I should deal with elsewhere in one of my other PRs. That's very good to catch. Because in one of my other open PRs right now, we stopped bothering trimming event names. Let's see. So I think we could actually add that as a commit to an existing PR. Go here, take off the trim in lowercase, and then there is a gestures method for this. So gestures / index. No, it's gestures. It's common. Okay. Move that over to here. Let's see. I want to find a more efficient way of determining whether a gesture is a gesture or not. So, given we've got an event, okay. think the reason this lowercase stuff is probably due to renderers. There's renderers like Svelte, which in the earlier days, I think Svelte version 3, it would, sort of in accordance with expectations of DOM, it would lowercase event names, which is very unhelpful because it's a lossy operation and we can't get back the original camel casing from it after that. So what's the best way to do this? That might throw a spanner in the works of my other PRs. But we can be optimistic. So it's a gesture if you attempt to string on it and you get something other than undefined back. Probably. Gestures common. UI slash something like that. There we go. We're looking for to string, and we'll give it a better name as gesture to string. Okay. Gesture name. So we're going to return the fact that this is truthy. And we're going to hope that there's no such thing as... Oh, hold on, I've done this wrong, my bad. Do I take the from string type instead? Yeah, that would be the one. Gesture string, oops, gesture from string, we'll take from string instead, jump back to where we were. So, was this avoided because of a circular dependency or something? Well, we're already drowning in circular dependencies, so it may be hard to be sure anyway. Just to think of my reasoning here, if we're doing this right, man. So if we pass in a gesture, well, an event or gesture name, and the event or gesture name is tap, it looks inside the enum, and if it finds no member called tap, then it returns undefined, which means thanks to this, we'll end up returning false from here. Whereas if it does, it'll be true. Yeah, so I think that's one we could potentially... Let's see. Is this something I want to fix up? Alright. Fix core, stop. What are we doing here? Okay. Oh, interesting. That's something I was wondering about, another PR as well. Okay. sort of half understand what I was talking about. Aha, we have a viewer. Welcome along. So just what we're working on right now is cleaning up whatever we can think of. We're trying to avoid some of the areas I've already got PRs open for. I just dived into this very intimidating file, bindable, which... Oh, it's Jamon! Hey. Oh, nice to see you, Jamon. How's it going? Plural types, yes. I can actually link some of the PRs I'm kind of referring to here. Where would I find these? So, github.com. Let's bring this in. Sorry, I'm just doing some stuff off screen. Go. Jamon saying, yes sir, going well. Just got done with a hockey game, won 7-1. Oh jeez. I don't know how scores work in hockey, but I assume that's seven goals versus 1 goal. Can you increase the font size? Yes sir. Yeah, we'll get it down to so small I can't operate. Ideally. Okay. Yeah, if it's this small, I think we'll go on. We'll do a task simple and bindable. So I was looking into bindable, being that bindable is how we implement the two-way bindings for things in NativeScript. And not actually all flavors of NativeScript use that. So the Angular flavor is the one that wants it, and I assume it uses bindable for that. The XML flavor of NativeScript also uses it, but flavors like React and Svelte and Vue, I don't think Vue's got two-way bindings, I don't know. Don't make use of it. Cool. Text is perfect size for Jamon, which means it's going to be good on phone. Where was I? So, bindable. I think bindable is going to be too intimidating for me to figure out the meaning and purpose of and how it all ticks on stream. So I'm going to bite off an easier task that allows me to go a bit more zombie mode. I'm going to try incrementally introducing what's it called? Strict types to the code base. Because this is a very, very old TypeScript code base based on, NativeScript was one of the earliest adopters of TypeScript. And so we have a lot of tech debt from just what TypeScript was and wasn't capable of back in the day. So yeah, I think strict mode will be the name of the branch. We'll give up and clean up what bindable. Just delete that. And so this should be pretty easy for anyone to follow without any familiarity from the code base. Be fairly therapeutic. We will just throw in some TS configs and go from folder to folder, introducing strict typings. So what is a fairly low blast radius we could take on? Well, actually, a very high value would be view-based, but a lot of things extend from that. Enums, gestures. Gestures, I've got some PRs open for, so I don't want to deal with merge conflicts. Any easy ones? Let's see. NativeScript has some ties with Angular, right? As Jamon asks. And Angular was the first to do that, I remember. Yeah, so this was 7 years ago, maybe 8 years now. So I wasn't there for the start of the history, but my understanding was the order was that first we had the XML-based flavor, and that was inspired by Microsoft XAML, used in whatever XAML's used for, probably something in the .NET ecosystem. I'm reaching the edge of my knowledge here. But yeah, as for where Angular came in, Angular was pretty hot 7 years ago, and So the NativeScript team cooperated with the Angular team to a certain extent and implemented NativeScript Angular, I think, before custom renderers were even I don't think there was a custom renderers API back then, but I'm not too sure. So I think actually the two-way binding concept possibly came out of whatever Microsoft UI framework the XML flavor was trying to imitate, but it was good that they had the expertise from that to add it for Angular. But hopefully one of the old hats, like Nathan, Eduardo, OC, Igor, if they come along to the stream, I think the actual time that I'm streaming right now might make it prohibitive. Hopefully they could answer that if they come along. Let's see. So what we're going to do, going to avoid areas I've worked on already. Properties, that is sort of tied to a bunch of other things. So is there any easier ones I could bite off? All right, well let's just sketch this out and see what it's like. So I'm gonna bung a tsconfig.json in there. We're gonna write it manually, and it's gonna be extends, and we're gonna find the closest tsconfig we can find. Now, where would this be? This is a monorepo, of course. Welcome along, viewer number 3. Where would the closest tsconfig be? Base or lib? Well, the closest one is clearly lib. Lib extends base, maybe? What is this tsconfig.json? Okay, so that's the inheritance. Base is indeed the base. Core extends that. Lib extends that. I really don't know what lib is. What's lib for? So if I check for mentions from the entire code base of tsconfig.lib.json, that's used to build some kind of package. That's the command for something. Now this is NX, the monorepo manager. I'm not totally familiar with it. Let's see. So when you run build, we delete our dist of core, and I guess we rebuild core. So this is clearly how we build core, tsconfig.lib.json. Now the question is, what's giving us the IntelliSense? Because you can actually build a different tsconfig to the one that you're getting the IntelliSense from. And I think the fact that it's .lib.json rather than tsconfig.json means we're getting the IntelliSense from this one, but we actually do the building from this. I think that's a good hypothesis. So let's remember where this is. We can ignore these other ones we've opened. We just need to crawl down to to this one. So we're in this directory, we've got one directory, we've got two directories, and then we match. So tsconfig.json, is this going to work? And then compiler options, we'll do a strict is true and see if things start going red. Okay, so let's get back some screen space, close others. Let's have a peek inside. Is there like a way to open all of these in tabs? That'll be handy. Fine, we'll start on button common. Aha! I wonder if that's maybe not a side effect. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stash my tsconfig just for a moment, restart the TypeScript server, and see if that's still redline. Oh, I've lost my window. Okay, restart TS server. So introducing that strict mode compilation setting, we restart the server. Oh dear, this is going to be hard because decorators are a thing unto themselves. What's wrong with this? Unable to resolve signature of class decorator when called as an expression. The runtime will invoke the decorator with 2 arguments. Jamon saying, this is one of the few parts of coding that I really don't enjoy, configuring tooling. Yes, we cannot function without it. It would be really nice if the coding languages we used were sort of close to 0 configuration. And I think that's one of the things that really holds me back from getting into things like the C++ ecosystem. The language I can entertain the idea of, but it's always the build systems that I'm up against. JavaScript, the build systems do get very complicated, but at least you don't have to deal with kind of includes and whatnot. Some yes there from Jamon. Okay, unable to... By the way, if anyone has any idea on this, why this would be a problem in strict mode but not in non-strict mode, I am all ears. The runtime will invoke the decorator with 2 arguments, but the decorator expects 1. My OBS blocks over the very last... I've got a chat window and it blocks over the very last portion of the message with the emoji button, so I'm always kind of hard for me to read this. Let's say okay. Yeah, okay. So the thing about decorators in NativeScript is I think for now we're using... I don't know if I think we're not using the ECMAScript decorators proposal. We're using TypeScript experimental decorators or something, and decorators is something I don't know too much about, but let's see how it's all set up. So we're extending tsconfig-base.json. We're emitting decorator metadata, and we've got experimental decorators. So what would happen if I just grabbed everything relevant to decorators here in tsconfig-base, reproduced it in my strict mode, and see what happens. Might as well restart the server. I don't know if that's necessary, but I really want to rule everything out. So clearly that was irrelevant. Let's save that and says possibly something else. Why? Okay, to humor it, if we copy, I mean, it should be extending. Is it finding this? It is finding this. Fine, but compared to .lib, what does that look like? Decorator. That's all they've got. There are these transformers, the native class transformer, and that's related to a decorator. But it's related not to the CSS type decorator. So I think it's about time that we stopped pointing the finger at the tsconfig and started questioning, what does this look like? Where does this get declared? Anytime you get sent to an index.dts file in NativeScript Core, you got to check, is there like a sibling .ios and .android either side of it, and maybe even a common. So let's look inside iOS and see how that works. Close others. And look inside Android as well. And see how CSS type is declared. And see if... What? How does this decorator work then? Is it coming from common? I think it is. Yeah, there we go. And just to double check, it's not overridden in Android. Okay, so we look for CSS type. It takes a single type string, just like we're giving it here. What? It has stopped complaining since we opened the file. So this is like a TypeScript language server caching issue, where it's forgotten how this is declared until you go visit it. So I wonder, does this signature not match? It looks like it matches. Type string goes to class decorator. But is class decorator the same thing in here as it is in view common.dts? So yeah, one of the real head spinners in a multi-platform code base is you've got this intersection of the Android implementation, the iOS implementation, and the common implementation, and then you've got a .d.ts file that's supposed to intersect between all of them perfectly. If you get any aberration there, that can lead to these kinds of inexplicable type complaints. But oh, hold on. Yeah, that's right there. So discard those two lines. We haven't stashed it away. So at this point, do I say I've done everything I can here? All seems to be working. Oh yeah, class decorator belongs to, yes. And we're not doing a local import of that, that's a global one. So, yeah, I cannot explain it. It's a TypeScript language server bug. Sweet. So moving on to the strict stuff. Accessibility role button, that's a string. Well, there's no complaints here. This is strict valid. So moving on to index.dts. Yes, we've got some any types. That's again because well, actually, I would like to say why not just put that there, but I think it's a bit of a rabbit hole. I think I have investigated that before, and it was only after a bit of investigation that we thought, oh, that's why you can't do it. It's possibly because you don't necessarily have the typings for iOS and the typings for Android installed at the same time, because you might be making a single platform app. I need to pop out the chat because I'm missing things. Come on, click decorate to go to definition. OBS overlay bump. Okay. Just a way. Yeah, so thanks for the rubber ducking, Jamon. I think it shall forever be a mystery at this rate. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, let's find some things to go red. Index.rs.ts, there's quite a few things in here. Is anything going to go red from my strict mode? Is it even listening to my locals? Hold on. So that's there, and it's saying be strict. And I'm lost. Right. I was working on index.rs.ts. There's got to be things that need to be strict here. Why is nothing complaining? I'd expect at least one red line just by sheer chance. Let's see if it's actually listening to that tsconfig at all. So close others there. Oh, this is the wrong one again. Hang on. tsconfig button. Right, so your strict mode. Let's say no unused parameters is true. Does anything go red? No. Which means it's not actually listening to that tsconfig. Oh no, there we are. There we are. Good. But why isn't that red? Yeah, as for removing something with that would error with strict mode, it's kind of hard to come up with one of those things on the spot. Let's turn that back off so everything goes. Come on. Restart TS server. Oh, now strict is behaving. So this is weird, isn't it? We all see, as you are my witness, we definitely put strict mode in, and we restarted the language server a good number of times, and it wasn't redlining this stuff. Fine. Let's see what we can do here. So native view protected. That only gets populated upon init native view. So we can express that like that. Except the typings say that it needs to definitely be there. And those typings are coming out of index.ts. So native view protected, native view is actually declared way up the tree in one of the superclasses. Not view, view common, native view where does this thing live? Thank you, Nyanta. My daily dose of coding therapy. Well, I hope this is therapeutic and not rage-inducing. Okay. What's everyone up to today? Let's see. So I'm trying to track down why is it unhappy with that. Where was this originally declared? Oh boy. Very hard to do on small, with such large text size. It's doing a simple text search for this rather than a kind of symbol-based tree search. Ah! Is this the key? Oh boy. So save that. What about button base? If we've got button based IOS and we save it. Yes. That threw me for a loop. Text base. Native text view protected. I want native view protected though. Text base. IOS. Native view protected. There we go. Does that do the trick? So if we make that optional, is this happy? Optional in type button, but required in type button base. Where do we get button base from? We get it from common. But also common implements this interface, which extends text base. Native view protected. Where are you hiding? I'm gonna find you. We definitely addressed this one. What's it complaining about here? Text base common. It's optional in type text base, but required in type text base common. Show me. Where are you hiding your native view protected? Hiding view base. Yes, okay, finally we found it. That's very tough to track down. Okay. Close all. Let's have a look on chat. I think people were talking. So Jamon is up to hockey, putting up shelves for his wife, and not much else. Very cool. I myself am hiding from the pollen. The hay fever season is dreadful. Well, I want to say in Japan, here in Japan where I am, but it's always horrible any country I go to. So it's the same in the UK. I'm actually layering up medicines. I've got to take steroidal medicines and antihistamines. Otherwise, I'm just streaming. Streaming from the eyes rather than streaming data for broadcast. Okay, so native view protected is now not necessarily in existence because that gets populated when equals. That gets populated following init native view. Shout out to anyone in the chat with hay fever. View base. So init native view is a concept of view base. View base does not have an iOS equivalent, but view common does. So where's our init native view? Where are you hiding? Let's search for occurrences of that all across the code base and see if any pops out as being further up the tree. We've looked at that. Date picker, irrelevant. Tab view, text base. Text base is further up the tree, that's true. So I know just from familiarity with this that init native view is responsible for setting. Yes, okay. It calls create native view and sets Vista native view protected equals that. So the question is, where in the code base does this get called? It's view base. Have a good night, Jamon. Yeah, I wish I could have started earlier, and I wish the time zones were a bit closer aligned between Japan and the US. This always kind of happens. So for me, it's merely 3:30 p.m. 3:30. But yeah, kind of the moment I'm free, America kind of starts going to sleep. Okay, so we've created a native view. We've got our just-in-time. So it's created just-in-time. So you have to assume it may be undefined. Okay. Upon init native. Make it wrap. Let's see. Okay, so you saw before we had a whole bunch of red line from turning on strict mode. This is absolutely infernal. So we have strict mode on, we save it, we go in here, nothing's red, we restart the TS server, it's not red, turn on something else random. Let's restart the TS server. Where's my red line? I think at this point we need to check the debugger for the extensions and see what is going on with TypeScript. So that's probably me killing it. Let's just clear those messages. Just trying to see why we're not getting any red line from having turned on strict mode for the first time. Restart the server. we're using that, but which? Yeah, the server's just straight up dead. Well, that won't be helping. Could it tell me more than that? We rather need that. I wonder if it's some weird thing like it's running out of, I want to say memory, but it will be quite fine for memory. We've actually got something here that slays TS server. Well, maybe that means we can't do this incrementally. Let's just dump what we've got so far. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Some of these will auto format, so they're a bit irrelevant to the task at hand. So I'm just gonna stage the lines that I was working on. Native view, stage that, delete. We're going to ignore the comment. So that's going to end up being like that. Yep. NativeScript. We're not going to stage this. We're going to give up on this approach. Okay, so this will be a chore core, or a fix actually. It's a fix of typing. Mark native view protected as, what's the word? Optional. It's not actually optional. It's just in time. I don't know if there's a better way. You know, is a question mark better than a or undefined? But whatever. That's elementary for now. So we'll commit those because we've done that. Hey, what happened to my other things? I didn't ask it to commit that. Oh, the pre-commit hook has interfered. That's very annoying. Unbelievable. I mean, I could disable the pre-commit hook, but fine. Collateral damage, it's just a comma, will survive. So I'm going to stash this tsconfig, restart the TS server, and we're going to instead try doing this using the root level tsconfig so that the language server cannot get confused at all. We're going to just do compiler options, and we're going to say strict as true, please. And does that work any better? Is TypeScript any happier with that? Let's just clear these messages. I'm a bit lost. Clearly TypeScript is surviving. Let's just restart the TS server, exited, and then well, that's the most recent estimate. That kind of suggests that it never started up again. What's going on? Clear those messages. TypeScript's there. Restart the TypeScript server. Go back out. That suggests it's dead right now. Oh no, is that the previous iteration of it having exited, and this is the new one surviving? Fine, okay, maybe that'll help me sleep at night. So the downside of this is that we've got strict mode turned on for the entire code base, which means every file I step into will be read, because we have committed a lot of sins. You know, for example, if I step into view base, jump into index, it's nearly all read. Oh yeah. But I only came for button. So the question is, is it madness to start this far out on the tree when instead I should be working closer to the source? And I think that is correct. I need to start down at observable, which is the bottom of the tree. Unfortunately, this will be introducing merge conflicts with the other PRs I've got open at the moment. That's what I was really trying to avoid. So I'm actually going to stash the tsconfig for just a moment, and we are going to rename this branch to strict mode button. I'm actually going to step back, make a new branch, strict mode observable. Start at the bottom. We're going to unstash our tsconfig. Bang. And start a new life on this branch. And just to make sure everything's in sync, we start with TS server. Okay, so the bottom of the tree is observable. And we'll see what we can do here. Got strict mode on, remember. Okie dokie, starting from the tippy top of the file, there's just a few complaints. This is view-based. Gets populate. Well, it's an optional true, isn't it? Yeah, once it gets populated, it will get set to true. But if it is never populated in the first place, then you have it. Ideally, you're using it. You're assuming it's a potentially falsy value. So instead of calling it Boolean, I think optional true is a much better way to express it. This is kind of correct. We're not going to turn off, we're not going to disallow any for now. That would be a mountain to overcome. I think we're just going to focus on getting strict mode working. So pick our battles one at a time. Returning this.name, observable has no index signature. How do you get around this? Well, you say you cast name as a key of. I normally do type of this. Key as type of this. Yes, sweet. That's how you get around the index issue. And we're gonna have to do this a fair bit more. So in both of these places, oh, there's a few of these. Oh, there's a load. Yeah, this will be fun. Watch this. Multi-select all of these. Any more? Paste, save. Beautiful. Okay. List. This area is going to cause merge conflicts because I'm working on that in the other branch. What's wrong with this? Yes, you're right. It's not assignable. Yes, so it's already caught. Moving us to strict mode has caught a potential error, which is great. So if there's no list, I mean, we could do it if there's. Hang on. There's like two different ways to write this. If you've oh, but hang on, get event list actually doesn't return. Ah, this is the thing. Okay, get ready for some generics. So what we've got is, this is a function that will return you an array only, so it will guarantee an array only if create if needed is true. Create if needed is left falsy, then you better be prepared for it to return undefined. So we're going to use a delicious generic here. So we can say t extends boolean there, and say if t extends. So if we're going to create it if needed, and let's just wrap this. If we're going to create it if needed, then we're definitely getting an array. Otherwise, we're going to get a optional array. And it's happy with that. And you can see a whole bunch of red line disappeared. So that's awesome. I'm not saying it's more readable, but it's definitely catching more errors. It's more correct. Okay. Whether there's a more beautiful way to express this, I don't know. And to be honest, nowadays we'd do as array of whatever. Okay, so there's just one strict mode error left to correct here. What is the issue? Your return value is... no, apply can... should actually be able to return... so... R needs to become any. T needs to become this context. So apply... type of entry this arg. That's our T. And if I recall, the next one was array of any. Then the final one is return type, which is going to be any. Yes! My generics are on point today. I'm not saying it's easier to read at all. It's not. But, oh, hang on. Well, this is well, that's the weird thing. Our typings have always suggested that the callback's supposed to return void. But check out the listener entry. Yeah, our callback's supposed to return void. So the idea that your callback could return a promise must be a vestige of old. So I'd like to... But I think that kind of belongs there, because you'll see in React and other frameworks, like people will do a div on click equals, console.log abc, or 1 to 3. Sometimes they might shove an async in front of it, at which case which would make it be returning a promise, even though we said the callback should be returning void. Maybe this is sort of a lazy way of enabling that. So the question is, maybe this should actually be returns unknown. And the callback, the fact that the callback can return void, it's kind of niggling at me, but like ultimately, what can I say? What was this array of any for anyway? That's the arguments, isn't it? Does it survive array of unknown? No. It's supposed to be array of any. Okay. So that is one file fixed. And are the tests happy with it? Yes. Fork it up. Okay. Fix core. Make observable strict compliant. Cool. Check on Twitter. There's a question. Do we have Tiger in the stream? This was 30 minutes ago. I wouldn't blame him for stepped out already. Alright, so underneath observable, we have view common, extends observable, and you can see the problems starting to rear their ugly heads. So, what could be going wrong here? With turn on word, I really need to set this as default on. Settings, user settings, wrap. on. Okay. Done. So what is it complaining about here? Probably it's getting a optional boolean? String or boolean? Okay. So that'll be, you'll often get this with the kind of short circuit operators. If it short circuits on something that is a string, it can end up as acting as something you can evaluate truthy falsy checks on, but not literally being a boolean. So if you do that, that gets one of the strings. There's, I don't know what module type is yet. Half of the string. Sweet. What is module type though? Module context. You'd have thought. Why isn't it complaining about that though? That, come on. Let's just check this in Node. We do that, and then true, it comes out as true. Oh! Fine, I'm pretty bad at these. So fair enough. Why is it only, and yet if you do, and then, what is that? I had a mental model. It's been invalidated. What's the logic here? Literally the Boolean logic. So if you've got an object and then true. Oh yeah, no, this kind of makes sense. So funnily enough, the thing at the very start of the chain plays second fiddle. It's always the thing at the end of the chain, the last truthy thing that matters. So if we do that, and that is going to be the same. Alright, whatever, it makes sense in my head. So that's fine. TypeScript is not wrong. So moving on. This listener's a bit key of issue. As key of type of this. Uh-oh. Why isn't that working? Oh. Is this a static function? Oh boy. This unknown. Maybe. Okay, I'm not quite. I've not had to deal with this one before. How can we solve this error? This unknown should do the trick. Oh, it's because it's an arrow function. Oh. Ah, yeah, sorry, no, this unknown. Okay. So how about we say type of this equals object. If so, we do this listeners. Do that. If so, we check for this listeners. Okay, type of this is object. And then this does not equal null. If so, as key of type of this, otherwise not. That's not very readable. It's one of, I can see the argument against strict mode, but it's mainly because I said this type would definitely be unknown, but it is going to be unknown. Yeah. Well, that's how you'd write it. Oh boy. Right. So let's say const. But that means we're unsafely assuming that this is something that can be indexed into in the first place. So we're assuming, so maybe we should just assume that, maybe we should model it better. So does it allow us to do this? Everything keyed on by type of listeners is going to be a what exactly? Is it just number? And it doesn't let us do this anyway. A computed property name in a type literal must refer to an expression whose type is a literal type or a unique symbol type. What's wrong with that? What? Fine. Okay, we are so back. Let's go. Which means we can remove all of this. Oh, lovely. And then that means that we can do property key. Is that a unique symbol? I'm not sure it is. That maps to a function which can accept a boolean and returns maybe void. Is this where we need to use type of property key? No. So the thing about this context is that this definitely refers to something, right? There's something in this universe that takes a property key and takes listeners. So it would really help if we actually knew what is this thing that takes the listener's symbol. Because we're not assigning to it here, are we? Listeners. Pseudo class handler. This is a CSS concept. And we're using symbol listeners rather than symbol.for listeners. So this is the place that listeners gets invented. So why are we not assigning with listeners anyway? This doesn't make any sense. I think it kind of seems like this would always resolve to 0. Previous is always going to be 0. So we're always going to end up in here. Property key. Let's search a whole code base for symbol listeners. That's so strange. This never gets assigned anywhere. That feels wrong. Oh, I've got the same thing on both sides. Property key is always going to be a string, I'm pretty sure. Oh, it's a string or a symbol. Omit from symbol type of listeners? I don't think that works. Ah, dear. It seems like a problem I've had with TypeScript before, where you want to declare like index signatures with a bit more specificity. You want to say like, if the index signature is this, it'll do this. Otherwise, this or that. And I think you can achieve that with map types, but map types are also very tricky to get right as well. So I guess maybe we can learn a bit more about this by seeing where it's used. Aha. And seeing if that can help us realize what type exactly this is supposed to be. Okay. So that's a example usage of pseudoclass handler. It will be past focus and blur. Okay. So I'll just get rid of this typing. It's making it very hard to read right now. So just get rid of that just for a moment. So for example, pseudoclass handler takes any number of, so e.g. could be called like this. So pseudoclasses are just good old strings which indicate state event names, which will be familiar from HTML. You've got the focus state, the blur state, and so you can choose how to style the element in CSS based on whether it's a focus pseudostate or a blur pseudostate. Listeners. So I do not think we're using that. This can have. So that's suggesting that we call focus on a view. Method can be either on or off, and you call it the focus. That seems different. Where is your focus method? You should have one somewhere. Or maybe you're doing it based on focus event. Do we have a focus? Public focus in view. Yes, okay. So here's an example view that implements focus. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Does it implement blur? No. So maybe that's a red herring. Nothing implements blur? Unless this is like an object rather than a class. Listeners. There's more than one way to write that. So why not? Okay. Focus. No. Blur. This is really tricky. What is this pseudo class handler thing? T is. Okay. So I'd need a bit more. This is a TypeScript internal thing, isn't it? So. Oh, hold on. Oh, I see. Right, so the property, sorry, I was getting mixed up between the pseudo classes and the property key. So the property key is not actually going to be focus or blur. The property key is going to be something else. So actually, this is just, okay. I think we need to look at method data decorator on yep. How do decorators work? What I don't know, well, I mean, this would be a method decorator rather than a class decorator. Although it says class here, it's actually talking about CSS pseudo classes, so I don't actually yet know what we're decorating. Although we do have an example. Got an example of that. So we can jump to a right section of the docs by saying, it's okay, so it's a method decorator. Method decorators, okay. That. So you return a function that takes a target of type any. Okay. Well, they say it should be any. Property key should be just string. Huh? And the descriptor should be property descriptor. Why can't we have? So that's also a thing. Okay, we probably do want typed property descriptor. Ah, okay, no, property key is going to be one of these, presumably. And then the target, where does property key get used? Okay. It's probably something very similar, isn't it? Oh, maybe this is red herring, but yes. Okay. Target can be any, the descriptor is going to be like this. It's unused, so we do that. We say, someone new in the chat, welcome along. So what we're working on today is we've just turned on strict mode in the TS config, and we're masochistically going through the very, very large and very old NativeScript Core codebase and tracking down anything that is a strict violation and making it strict again. And I've bumped into the very tricky case of decorators, because decorators are very hard to read because they're like pseudocoding. Or metacoding, metaprogramming rather. So I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to handle each of these cases. So what on earth? This is very hard to read. So maybe the thing that's complicating this is that we've got a decorator that can accept multiple pseudo classes at once, so we can get focus and blur. We pull out those event names and we shove a colon in front of them. So these will correspond to TypeScript things, CSS-y things like blur and focus. And then we have a certain number of listeners. So why is this not going to work? If you stop using that, nothing much happens. Okay, I think I'm getting quite thirsty. And no amount of drinking is quenching my thirst, so I might call it a good time to take a break and maybe solve this particular one off stream and come back to this later. But thank you everyone for coming along, and I hope to do another stream another time when I am in the mood. So catch you later. Thanks for coming along.